Well, folks, in today's video, we're going to be trying to get my grandmother's childhood train running for the first time in about 60 years. It's a Rivarossi 224 German Atlantic steam locomotive, and it hasn't run since about 1959. It's been in the family for nearly 70 years, but as you can probably tell, it's definitely seen better days. Now, I want to get this thing running for two reasons. The first reason is obviously that it's a family heirloom, and I think it would be very nice to get it going again. But moreover, her 81st birthday is in about a week, and I think it'd be really nice if she could run her childhood train for the first time in about 60 years on her 81st. So yeah, it's going to be a bit of a challenge. There's definitely a lot of work that's going to have to go into it, but I think that it certainly will be worth it if we can succeed at that. Now, some of you might remember that this is not the first Atlantic locomotive of hers which has been fixed up. The channel was actually created with the intention of getting her Rivarossi Hiawatha running again, and she was able to run that train again in 2019, so that project was a success. The Hiawatha is also going to be getting a facelift, but I'll get into that later. For now, I'll slowly dig out some of these parts, and I'll tell the story of this train, because unlike most of the stuff I work on, I actually know a little bit of its history. Now, from what she's told me about this engine, she got it for Christmas, I think sometime in the early 1950s, let's say 1953 or 4. I don't know the exact date, but it was sometime around then, and the train set was cherished by the family for probably about 5 years, and then in 1959 it all got packed away. She ended up moving to Canada, and her family ended up moving to Australia. And she was under the belief that everything had been thrown out and the layouts had been either sold or thrown away, and same with all the rolling stock. So she thought all this stuff was gone. But at some point around the 1980s, her father passed away and she went out to Australia to deal with the estate. And while she was going through everything, she was digging through some boxes in a closet, and that's when she found out that the locomotives had survived. They had not been thrown away, so she was quite happy about that. But unfortunately, over those years they were in storage, zinc pest got at most of the parts and did a ton of damage. And then to make things worse, she didn't have much room when she was bringing all this stuff back to Canada, so she had to pack all of the locomotives in her suitcase. And when she arrived at the airport, they were throwing all the bags down a chute, and she told them that there was a bunch of fragile things in her bag and asked if they could, get it down to the bottom a different way, but the woman just threw it down. So everything which already had zinc pest pretty much got eliminated, and when she got back to Canada, she opened up her bags, and this is basically what she found. So this engine has definitely had a bit of a tragic life in the last 60 or so years, but I'm hoping we can open a more positive chapter. As you can probably tell too, there are some other childhood trains in here which I really want to fix up, but these ones are AC, so they will not work on my layout. I'll have to build something separate for them, but there is going to be an advantage with this one, which I'll show you quite soon. Well, I think that right there is about everything. A lot of the important components are here. The chassis, I would say, is the worst part. There's not really anything left here. The zinc pest and airport staff really did their best to try to dismantle this locomotive. But there's one saving grace, which is that they still make parts for these locomotives, and I was able to import some. So let's unbox those. It's remarkable that they still make parts for these Rivarossi locomotives. I'm guessing it must be some ex-Rivarossi employees. If anybody's wondering, the resource is called River Restore, and they're a pretty good dealer. The parts are certainly not cheap, but I have dealt with them before. I get comments from people all the time asking where you can get parts, and most of the time when you're looking for parts, there isn't really much in terms of aftermarket for HO scale trains, and you're kind of SOL except for used parts. Remarkably, with these Rivarossis, that is not the case. Now, I don't really know what's what here, and there are a lot of parts which are not just for this locomotive, but also for the Rivarossi Hiawatha. The idea is that I want to have enough parts that I can keep these locomotives running for at least as long as I'm around, and I don't know how much longer they're going to make these reproduction parts, so I've also got a ton of spares in here. I think this might be a backup chassis for the Hiawatha, but we'll have to see here. Yeah, so this is a backup chassis just in case something ever goes wrong with the Hiawathas. If it, let's say, develops zinc pest or something along those lines again, we've got those parts, but for our uses, that's not going to be necessary. Gotta love the boxes here too. Well, that's interesting. I ordered a spare wheel set for the Hiawatha, but they sent me a whole assembly. Well, that's awesome. So for anybody who doesn't know, the Hiawatha was missing a few parts because some of them were damaged, so I ordered some extra spares. That way that locomotive can be restored to full working order as well. So it's going to be getting a facelift at the same time as this thing is getting rebuilt, which I think is going to be kind of nice. Got some spare ball bearings for the motor. Got some new brushes, more brushes. These are going to be important for the tender. Extra motor parts. And right here is the main piece of the operation. This is the chassis. And if we compare that with what's here, you can see just how much material is actually missing here. I'm certainly glad to see this. I was a little bit worried because this is a lot smaller than the Hiawatha's chassis. I expected it to be a little bit longer, but here it is. I actually ordered factory grease for these models to try to keep them in as best a condition as I possibly can. I love how vintage everything is. Got some new cylinders, new worm gear. And got new buffers. I don't know if these are going to be necessary, but I did notice that the originals are missing a little bit of metal towards the top there, so it's an option. I want to use as many original parts as I can. If you replace everything, you're basically just building a separate train, but we'll see what needs to go and what can stay. And some various hardware, which I reckon we're going to need. This is for the motor. I was really hoping to be able to fix up the original motor, but there's not much there, so I don't think that that's going to work out. You know, I kind of went overboard with the hardware, but again, you know, when you're importing this stuff all the way from Italy, the last thing you want is to realize you're missing something after you've already imported it, because it takes about a month for them to make these parts and ship them out. So that should be about everything we need. Hopefully this works out. You know, I'm a little bit concerned because the heat is on to get this thing done, but let's start disassembling the current drive system, get rid of all the junked parts, and then slowly but surely try to build this thing up from the ground. So here's the bottom of the gearbox. I think that this part should be reusable, although there is some paint or something stuck to that, which will have to be removed. The zinc pest is locking the rear wheels in place a little. There we go. The difference is really just night and day, and you can see cracks forming. Like this part right here probably didn't have all that much time left in it before it completely disintegrated. So I think the first order of business before we go attaching these two pieces is going to be to clean all this stuff out, because it's pretty bad, as you can see. So I think we'll get some warm soapy water, we'll get a toothbrush and just gently give everything a little bit of a scrub, just so that there's not too much resistance or gunk built up. Let them soak for a little bit and look over some of the other parts. These are not that bad, but they definitely do have a little bit of grease or something on them, so in they go too. Just gonna clean off this bottom part with some rubbing alcohol. I believe zinc pest is just caused by impurities in the metal, at least that's what I've heard. But I have heard rumors that moisture can speed up the process. I don't know if that's true or not, but I really don't want to take my chances with this. It's interesting how they added insulators to both sides. I've not seen that before on a Rivarossi. I think that's how it went. We still know if this thing shorts out later what it could be. So that all tidied up, I think we can unite the wheels with the chassis. Yeah, there we go. So it looks like there's a little screw, which I guess needs to go there. Connect this piece of metal there, so I'll have to keep that in mind. But I think for now I'll just try to get this part together here. Throw a little drop of oil in there. It's so weird for me seeing all of this together, because the entire time I've had it, it's never looked anything like this. That one little pesky screw in there. I believe there's supposed to be another nut and bolt that holds this together. I don't know if I still have the original anywhere, so I'm going to look through the parts I've bought, see if I can replace it with that. If not, we'll come up with something for that. Seems pretty good. I think at this point we'll focus on getting this in place. Now, I did order a replacement because honestly this does look a little bit warped, but I do want to use as many original parts. They've got character to them, you know, they tell the story of this locomotive, so we'll see if this is still salvageable here. Definitely think I'll have to bend some of these parts back into place a little bit though. With that all attached, I'm going to go through here and see if I can find the plate, which is supposed to cover the worm gear. Yeah, part of the old motor. Well, it's not what we're looking for, but I think this might actually be part of this locomotive. I don't know. Well, unfortunately, I don't think it's in here. Didn't realize they had already packed these things with ball bearings. That's good. I felt like this part right here was not going into place, so I went digging through my spare parts bin and located the original worm gear, and I'm glad I did because you can see these are not the same. So it's lucky I still have all these parts because I can just load this up with some new bearings, throw it in there, and it should work. And these two parts are already broken in with each other, so it should actually work better than a brand new one right out of the gate. Alright, so it's now the next morning. I wasted a lot of time last night looking for this plate, but it's all together and I'm very happy with how it's looking so far, so I think we'll move on to assembling this whole front area. Now, I've got a bit of a confession, which is that obviously this attaches to something under here, and I think I've found that screw, but this part is damaged, and I thought I had ordered up the correct replacement, but I clearly was not paying attention. This does not resemble that really in any way. This is supposed to be a two-wheel unit, so I think I'm gonna have to figure out a way to try to get this all reattached. See, this is supposed to add on. It's a very thin piece of metal, and it's also supposed to hold a wheel in place. So I think what I'll do for this is score up the metal and add some sort of a reinforcement plate, because I just don't think this is going to be able to hang on by itself. I also found this screw right here, which I believe is what's supposed to hold this all together, although I'm going to have to add a nut on top of it, because I think this is damaged right here. I could be mistaken, but I don't see anything like on the weight that this would screw into. So my guess is that this shell had this piece of metal here, and this probably came back over here. So it was kind of like a C-clip with a hole for the screw to thread into. That seems to be gone, so I'm gonna have to add a nut right there. Alright, well, the glue has dried. Now there's going to be somebody out there that's not very happy I put some glue in there, but this thing is just seriously compromised, and you know, you can see the wheel turns just fine, so I think that should be okay. I'll add some reinforcements to this, and then I think we'll call it a day for this piece. I know this bit looks super messy, but I really want to make sure that this never comes apart again. Well, it's about a half hour later, and I'm pretty happy with how that's looking. You know, it's not the prettiest thing out there, but most of the strong things in the world are made by combining two different materials, you know, like fiberglass and resin, concrete and rebar, and here we've got tin plate and zinc pest, so it's all good. Now, the conductive side of the wheels needs to match this. That's where the wiper is, so we'll throw those in there. That also means, by the way, I did in fact put that backwards, so I'll have to fix that at some point. But for now, just throw that in there. Put some oil there. I'm not going to put a crazy amount because I really don't want that seeping in there and causing problems. Seems okay. I'm really hoping these wheels don't short against this metal, because this definitely has a bit of zinc pest, so it's expanded and it's larger than it should be, but we'll give it a chance. I, again, do want to use the original parts. We'll put a little dab of CA on top of this too, just because this is holding fine, but I just want to make sure that this doesn't vibrate out and let all of these parts become loose. And it should break if ever I need to take it apart again. All right, let's test out the gearbox a bit. Well, that so far seems to be turning about as it should. Yeah, I think this is supposed to kind of wrap around there. I'm not sure if that's doing what it should, but at least it's all turning properly, which brings me to the next point, which is actually attaching on the motor, and that's going to be a challenge. Let me show you why. So here's the frame for the original motor, and you can see there are a couple holes here that the screws would thread into, so the idea is the motor would, you know, roughly be mounted like that. Either way, a new motor needs to mount there. Now, Norman Corey sent this motor in here. Unfortunately, the holes don't line up on that one. It doesn't look great. I think that might work. Got to figure out some sort of a way to get that off there. It's remarkable Rivarossi designers didn't change to this, because this motor is probably from about the 1960s. I mean, it shares a little bit in common with this, but yeah, for the amount of years it is new, it's kind of remarkable. I think I'll have to put a torch on here, heat this up, and just try to yank that gear off. I really should invest in a gear puller. Ah, there we go. Okay, let's see if that heat damaged the motor. It's good as new. Rivarossis are awesome. So now I need to find some screws to actually attach these together, and I also need to figure out some sort of a drive shaft to actually link the two parts. Now, in a recent video, Norman Corey supplied me with a whole bunch of different coupling solutions here. He made all these parts himself. He works on a lot of Rivarossi locomotives. Now, obviously, you know, he didn't have this exact model, so he just kind of had to take guesses on what I would need, and it seems to fit pretty well there. But the only thing is that the drive shaft of the motor is not splined like it is on the gearbox. So if it was connecting to this, it wouldn't be a problem. But unfortunately, that positions the motor incorrectly. So I'm kind of wondering if I just go at this with a Dremel, if maybe I can just kind of cut the drive shaft a little bit to fit this part. Well, it doesn't look half bad if you ask me. So that right there is pretty darn close. I think I might just have to shave this down a little bit. Okay, so quickly off camera, I just removed this piece of plastic right here and cut down the metal drive shaft there. So now this fits on there nicely. It's just about perfect. So I think we'll bolt this thing on, and then we'll actually test out the mill and see if it's even powerful enough for this locomotive. Okay, I think it's looking pretty good. Let's try giving it some power here. Oh, it's trying. Yeah, okay. Okay, yeah, it's starting to rev up. There we go. You know, a lot of these parts haven't moved in 60 years, so it might just need to all break in a little. So with this mostly back together, I think we'll focus on the shell. Now, as I mentioned earlier, I'm pretty sure this piece of metal is not supposed to be that way, so I'm gonna try modifying this a little bit. Check it out, the original headlight still works. It's really bright. That's not a lot of voltage, so I don't know how much life is left in that filament, but it's still going. Okay, so I think to replace this broken piece of metal, and cut the bottom of this off so that it can sit flush with this weight. I'll try to maybe tap something into the metal. All right, well, I just went and quickly drilled a hole in the weight here, so I'm thinking is that we'll be able to put a screw through here and just kind of tap that in there. And anyways, we'll see if it will actually work now. Okay, so I've got this new wire soldered on here, so I'll run that down this. I think that is for this purpose. With the locomotive more or less together, I think we'll turn our attention to the tender, which is also in pretty rough shape. Now, I did find this screw, which I believe is the original one, which went through here at some point. This other one has broken off the plastic. I don't know why they would decide to build it like this, but it certainly makes life a lot easier for reattaching stuff. It's a lot more glue than it really needs, but I want this to be nice and secure. And now we can remove the original truck and replace it with the new ones I bought. Okay, well, I managed to round up all of the wheels. It's interesting that one of the axles looks different from the others, but I don't think it really matters too much. Now, it is important that the isolated and non-isolated sides go on the same side. Doesn't look half bad in my opinion. I wonder if these are supposed to be spring-loaded from the other side. That's just not looking right to me. Yeah, that seems a little more likely. So I'm pretty happy with how this is all looking so far, but before we go testing anything, I just want to quickly buff the wheels. Now, I did buy a Dremel, so for the first time I'm going to be using the buffer to try to clean up the wheels. I don't know how this is going to go, but I'm willing to give it a good try here. Well, it's now a while later, and the wheels are definitely looking a lot better. They're not quite as shiny as I'd like them to be, but it's certainly quite an improvement. I think I need to learn a little bit better how to use the buffer just to get the right amount of compound and so on. Either way, I think we'll get this wire attached, we'll fix up a few cosmetic details, and then bring this thing over to the track and see if it will run or not. Now, as we found earlier, got this part, but the other one wasn't too far away, and River Rossi has a great design. You see how the pins are aligned differently on both sides, so you know which way to put them. So I think that's the ticket right there. I think that's definitely looking a bit better. I also just dabbed this with some soapy water and just cleaned up a few spots here and there. And I know it's not perfect. The paint could certainly use some work, but it's got a lot of character. Now, let's move on to the tender here. I think this is going to need a bit of soapy water. Okay, well that's all dried, and I think it's looking a lot better. So now I just need to route this wire into the tender and actually hook it all up. I also need to put a pin of some kind in there so we can actually get the locomotive attached. I'll try to solder that on there. Originally there would have been a pin here, but unfortunately I no longer have that part. With that all nice and connected, I think I'll just throw a screw through here to try to link up the tender to the locomotive. I know some people probably don't like the idea of a permanent connection, but the wire is also permanently connected, so if one needs to be removed, so is the other. That can still move around well enough, that should be okay. So, for the first time in 60 years, let's put this thing on the track and see if it will do anything for us. This is really going to be the ultimate moment of truth. Will a locomotive, which has been sitting since 1959, start? Okay, here goes nothing. Yes! Yeah! Yeah! Look at that! First time in 60 years. It's doing pretty well so far. Current draw is a little high, but that's not too bad. It's still within tolerance. Let's give her a little more throttle. Yeah, this thing's running great. I'm really just amazed by how smooth it's running. Like, it doesn't look like a locomotive that's been sitting for 60 years. I can't tell you how happy it makes me to see this thing going again. You know, when I was younger, like 12 years old, I spent so many hours trying to get this running again, and I really never thought I'd see it. So, yeah, this is just fantastic. I think it does need a little bit of refinement, maybe a little bit of extra oil just to get it running a little bit more smooth because the current draw is ever so slightly high. But this is really quite remarkable. I think the tender does need slight adjustment though. It's sitting a little bit crooked there. Okay, I got the tender all straightened out. Another thing I noticed is that the headlight did not seem to be working, so let's try to pop this cap off and see if I can figure out why that is. Check it out. It's working. With the headlight all fixed up, I decided just to go and quickly throw a coupler on the back here. I went with the German style coupling for obvious reasons. Now, I don't own a crazy amount of German rolling stock, but I do have about 5 freight cars I picked up a few years ago, and I think they're roughly from the same era as this locomotive, and they should look very good behind it. So let's get them all coupled up here. It's been a while, eh?
Oh, Harry! My God!
Anyways, the reason I wanted to bring you down here is because over the last month or so, I rebuilt one of your childhood trains. So I imported parts from Italy, and it's all back together.
Oh, I remember. I was telling you about
that last night. Yeah. Anyways, if you want to run it, just turn this knob right here.
Oh, this way?
Yeah.
Oh, bless your heart. Oh. Oh, I can't believe it. Look at her. Oh, you're amazing. And look. Here she comes. Seeing her is like seeing the Orient Express coming.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's the biggest show, Harry. That is absolutely wonderful. Oh, this is the most magical Easter at Christmas. And the sound, I was telling you about the sound last night. I never dreamed it would work. But you did it. Oh, with all the cargo. Is this one of the original cargoes?
Yes, it is.
Yeah. See, it's good. It runs like a Cadillac, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
I know. See, I didn't know she was called a high. I just knew. I remembered her. And this is the one I remember more because there were more of those. Raymond must have had 7 more of those with all the cargo and...
We got it all back together. I just need to get a new motor in it.
Oh, oh, it's wonderful. But can you imagine? It was set up. It was huge because it was a huge room, not big. Well, it would be 2 of these and the whole living room for 2 days. And of course we just sat there because at Christmas every store window, especially in London, the big corner windows, they would have the train sets running. And of course every child would be watching them. Put them, wrap them all in plastic really, really carefully. We stopped in Vancouver, and they were in all this wrap
Mm-hmm.
in a suitcase. And I said to the girl, please don't throw them down. She was throwing my stuff down. She broke loads of china. It was the trains, and it was heavy.
Mm-hmm.
And she just fired it down, and all I heard was clang, clang, break, break. And what an awful person. Condition of
Yeah.
both of them.
Well, I'll show you what I started with. So this was me slowly piecing it all back together.
Good grief. Well, you'll never sell them.
Oh, for sure.
No. And if you have little boys, can you imagine?
Oh, they'll love it.
So will you.
Dusting everything, cleaning it all down.
Well, you're amazing.
And it worked the first time, so this is...
Oh my. You must have felt emotional.
Oh, yeah. Well, I didn't know if it was possible, you know, even with all the new parts.
No, because when I showed you and then I gave them to you, it was like a pile of rubbish, really. It would be like giving you a box of little bits like this.
Mm-hmm. Well, folks, that's going to be it for today's video. I hope you all enjoyed. I'm absolutely thrilled with how this project turned out. It's just incredible to see this locomotive running for the first time after sitting in storage and collecting dust for so many decades. And getting to see my grandmother's reaction to being reunited with one of her childhood trains was absolutely priceless. So I think overall this project has been a great success. I want to thank all of you for your support over the years with the Hiawatha project, which has now, led to the funding of being able to restore this locomotive. And I also want to give a special thanks to Norm, who actually sent in a bunch of spare motors and the drive shaft which I put in this locomotive. That was very helpful. I don't know if the project would have worked without his help, so huge thanks, Norm. Anyways, with that, I just want to thank you all so much for watching.